Awesome. So joining us today, we're so privileged to welcome Alysia Reiner, who can currently be seen in season 4 of Orange is the New Black as Fig, a role which won her a SAG award. She can next be seen bringing her talents to other shows, including Masters of Sex and the new FX series Better Things. Equity was Alysia's 7th independent feature shot in 2015, but the first as both actress and producer. Welcome. Next, we have actress, producer, and writer Sarah Megan Thomas, who is on a mission to tell stories about strong and complex women. She wrote, produced, and starred in the movie Backwards and has co-founded the company Broad Street Pictures along with Alysia, with Equity as their inaugural project. She's an advocate for charitable causes, most notably Minding Your Mind, a charity that educates children in school about mental health problems to relieve the stigma. Actress Anna Gunn is a 2-time Emmy Award winner for her performance as Skylar White on Breaking Bad. She's also, She's also starred in numerous other television shows, movies, and live theaters such as Deadwood, Grace Point, Enemy of the State, and many, many more. She can next be seen in Clint Eastwood's Sully and on television in the 2nd season of Shades of Blue with Jennifer Lopez. Welcome. Writer Amy Fox, a fellow Brooklynite, has over a dozen theater productions and a Merchant Ivory film credit to her name due to her crisp and quirky writing. She's been called a ferocious talent, and in 2000 she was commissioned to bring her play Heights to the big screen, starring greats such as Glenn Close and James Marsden. Welcome. And finally, Meera Menon was recently selected to be a fellow at 20th Century Fox's Global Directors Initiative. She's been awarded the Nora Ephron Prize for a groundbreaking woman filmmaker by Tribeca Film Festival and Vogue magazine, and she's also been selected by Glamour magazine as one of the 35 women under 35 running Hollywood. Run it, girl. Excellent. So thank you all so much for being here. I think it would be great if you could each quickly just introduce your role on the film and why this project was so personally important to you to be a part of.
Oh, hi. Oh, hey. I'm Alysia. So I guess I have a story by credit because Sarah and I developed the treatment and then hired the amazing Amy Fox to write it. And Sarah and I produced it, and then I'm also in the film. And I just need to say, I just heard that intro, and it's the first time we've all been together, and I want to cry because I'm just so grateful to be part of this amazing group of women who have these incredible resumes. And I guess my interest in the film was, how do we make the world better for women? That's really my truth. And how do we tell stories that sometimes other people are afraid to tell about the stuff that's not okay? And in this case, how women are treated sometimes on Wall Street is that story.
Hi, I'm Sarah, and I think Alysia did a great intro on our involvement in the film. My character in the film is a woman named Erin Manning, and she particularly has a place in my heart because she's a woman trying to have it all, and someone who enters the corporate world thinking she can have it all, and she's pregnant and hiding it and dealing with a home life and a work life and realizing that maybe she won't get to where she thinks she can in her career. And I think personally, I can really relate to maybe not being in your career where you think you will be at a certain age or a certain time point, like when you choose to start a family. So I hope that she's a character that kind of resonates with a lot of young women out there who are thinking about being powerful women and also starting a family.
I'm Anna Gunn. I play Naomi Bishop, and I was just in love with the film as soon as I read it. I thought that the story of 3 women who are leading the way in terms of the storytelling and the nuance, the detail, the layers to each of the characters. And especially I was looking for a character very much like this one who's not a reactor towards a man, but is really in the forefront and is the one moving the action forward as as are my lovely co-stars and producers. And I really was intrigued by the fact that she's devoted her life, and just as you said about Erin, there is that question of the sacrifices you make, the things that you take on or give up in order to get what you want and to succeed. And I was fascinated with a woman as confident and strong as she is, who's been on a winning streak. And then when we meet her, though, she suddenly had her first real loss. And she's struggling then for the rest of the film to get back up. And it gives her a different perspective completely on the life that she's led so far.
Hi. Yeah, I had actually worked with Sarah and Alysia previously in theater as a playwright. And so when they approached me, and they had founded the company and had this concept of a Wall Street film with these 3 women characters, it appealed to me immediately, and I don't have any background in finance. The original Wall Street movie was one of my favorite movies, which is an odd fact. I mean, people wouldn't necessarily expect that from me, but it's true that I just always loved the ride it took you on. I loved the ethical questions in that movie, the questions of family loyalty and kind of how greed interfaces with that. And so the idea of taking that genre and then putting this new perspective on it, and also telling the truths of the women. I mean, we interviewed so many women whose experiences you'll see in the film, and the idea that these women have been working on Wall Street for 30 years, 20 years, 10 years, and we haven't seen their stories anywhere. And that the big part of my goal as a storyteller is to uncover stories and tell stories that we should have seen these women before, but we haven't. So here they are.
I directed the film. I mean, I just wanted to do it from the moment I read the script. I thought Amy's writing had this like kind of sophistication and elegance, and kind of provoked a kind of precise approach to filmmaking that I was really inspired by, and I was really inspired by the main character as Amy wrote her. I mean, Naomi was someone I kind of had never I think seen on screen before, and I knew a dialogue with this character with the right kind of mind and body behind it would be a conversation I could grow from as a woman myself. Yeah.
That's excellent. So quickly from the audience, I'd love to get a show of hands from the folks in the room, and for the men specifically, I'm curious, how many times in your career have you felt like either a personal or professional relationship has suffered because you've been too career focused? Okay, how about for the women? We got some shy folks out here. Come on. A few wavering hands. We're not sure if that's why. Yeah, I'll raise my hand high. It's clear that this character is so strong and driven and ambitious. Can you talk a little bit about what it was like preparing for that role, in either personal or other interviews that you did to pull from?
Well, I first talked with Meera for a couple hours, I think, and we were really on the same page from the get-go in terms of the warrior that this woman is and the sacrifices that she has made. She has chosen to, and it's very clearly spelled out there, she does what she does. She took it on out of need in the beginning, and then I think the winning, the art of the deal and the win is something that is it's incredibly addictive almost. Mm-hmm. And I talked to then Alysia and Sarah. They gave me so much information about the women that they had interviewed, the women who were the inspiration for these roles, and also investors. And then I was on the phone with Barbara Byrne, who is a Wall Street luminary, and she was wonderful, and I took reams of notes, and she really let me understand her journey, difficulties, the struggles, sacrifices, and also the victories, and what really she has such a joy in terms and such a passion for what she does. So we then had a day in New York before we started shooting in Philly, and we went through a mock IPO, so I felt like I could really wrap my head around it then. And then going out to dinner with a variety of women and just watching the interaction and razor sharp wit and incredible intellect and fun and laughter and strength. And so I took pieces from all of that. And I also felt like, with good writing, the hints are there, the meat is there. So there were, and I liked the fact that you know that she doesn't see her family very often, and it's not leaned on too much. It's not, heavily, but it's there, and she really has, she has her fish, and she has her mentor John, and I think even her boyfriend. She is wanting to have a close and intimate relationship, but there's always a sense of perhaps there's a trust issue there. So I don't.
All those things together, yeah. And we'll see a little bit of that later as well, just kind of the importance of building a network that you can trust on and kind of at what costs.
Right.
Excellent. Amy, I think at Google we talk a lot about being kinder to ourselves and kind of quieting what we call this inner saboteur. So you have this little person talking in the back of your head.
I want to work at Google.
What's that? We just happen to talk about it here. In the film, the characters briefly discuss, I'm not giving anything away, but they briefly discuss the differences in how men and women digest feedback. Why was it important to you to include that conversation in the film?
I think for me personally, it was an aspect of the story that I really, really related to. I think so as I was interviewing people, this theme kept coming up again and again, where women would say that if something went wrong, if a deal went wrong, if something didn't go through, they would be very hard on themselves. They would sort of stay up nights questioning, why did that happen? And men and women told me that men are less likely to do that. Not that they never do that, but that men are more likely to get pissed off and say, oh, that didn't work out because of this happened or that, and blame something outside of themselves, where women will turn it inwards. And that's, I guess, something I just personally have been very aware of in my own life. And I've taught writing for 10 years. I see a big difference in my male and female students with that voice you're talking about. I see it in my daughter already. I don't know why that is. I don't know why that saboteur seems to be stronger in women, but it's something I'm very passionate about dispelling whenever I can. So that scene was really important to me.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because that inner saboteur can also be such a strength, right? To gut check yourself and keep yourself in line. And I think we're starting to see a turn of weighing a bit more on some of the EQ values versus IQ and making sure that we find that line. We actually have another clip. We see Erin in the scene basically mustering all the courage and guts that she can to blurt out that one sentence. And I know how tough that is because I've actually done the very same thing. And get completely shut down. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you think you've seen in the workplace where women can help other women and pick them up from these places?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, women don't go in there and do what Erin does in that scene enough. Ask for that job promotion, even if you do get a no. And one of the things we really wanted to explore in that scene between me and Anna and both our characters is how difficult it is to be women of different generations, and how Anna's character isn't really, and I'll let you speak to that, but from my standpoint as Erin, I don't see that she's overwhelmed with her work at this time, and she feels like there's not enough spots at the top. I'm only seeing it as my boss is shutting me down. So we were also, and I'll let you talk a bit to this, but interested in the dynamic between the two women when you want a promotion.
Yeah, we talked, that scene was a really intricate and very difficult scene, really, because I think that we established a backstory that Naomi was actually very supportive and brought Erin in and nurtured her and moved her along. And actually, one of the things that the women emphasized a lot, the women that I spoke to, was that it was very important. The mentor-mentee relationship was extremely important, and the having somebody bring you in and bring you along and help you along, and then in turn, when you get to a certain point, it's your turn then to mentor somebody else. And they also said that it was extremely important to know that you had somebody, one person at least, who had your back, and vice versa, that you could count on in a crunch. And I think that Naomi really feels that way about Erin. But she's got, right now, she's just, experienced this failure, and it's just been splashed all over the television. She's just been dealing, I don't know if she's actually dealt with her boss at that point yet, but she's so intent, and she's so intense about looking for the next deal and the next win and making sure that she doesn't slip away. And so when she says it's not the time, she's not trying to be mean, and she's not trying to be dismissive. She's just saying, this is the reality. And she's a person who just speaks her mind very, very honestly, and she doesn't mince words. And so it's not meant to be a, get out of here. It's meant to be, look at this place is a mess. We're all, you know, we're all in some sort of jeopardy. And when the time is right, she means it. She really means it. So that, you know, she does say, like, she really gives, Naomi gives her boss later, tells him that Erin did wonderful work. And so she is looking to help her along, but there is that the kind of things, and the misinterpreting of certain things that are said, and wondering, does somebody really have my back? Because this is such a competitive environment.
And I just want to add one thing, because it was relative to what we were just talking about. Women internalize it more. So the no from Naomi, Erin's internalizing is, I'm a failure, as opposed to the timing's bad. And that goes back to what we're saying. Like, if a man gets a no, they might bounce back more quickly and go ask for it again a little later.
And interestingly enough, in reference to filmmaking, in the edit room, we played a lot with what order to put the scenes. And do we put Naomi asking for her promotion first, or Erin asking first? And they told different stories, because in fact they're both trying for the same thing, and there is that fear and that competition, because there is that feeling, because there are so few women in this world, of there's not enough space. And that's, you know, part of the story we were trying to tell.
That's excellent. It's definitely something that you're competing for the same types of projects and the same type of recognition. And our CFO, Ruth Porat, who actually came from Wall Street, she has shared with us in multiple different formats that the communication styles between men and women are different. That men will go in and I want this promotion, and not all men, just for the sake of, I'm generalizing here, but where women, when they say something like that, you have to assume, either as a male or a female boss, that they are shouting it from the mountaintop. Even that one sentence, is this the right time for a promotion? She is screaming that she's ready. So I think, for everyone in this room who can help people get there, it's important to know that those communication styles really matter.
I just want to jump in. Only just, I think, about 10 days ago, there was an article in the New York Times about advice for women asking for a raise or a promotion. And I actually thought it was an Onion article when I saw it, because it literally was instructing women on how to do a dance so they wouldn't appear threatening in asking for what they deserve. And there was no acknowledgement that maybe they need to be heard differently, that the person with the power needs, it was literally like, well, you don't want your boss to think you're demanding. And this was in the New York Times about a week ago. So I just feel like there's so much progress to be made on this issue.
And actually, I mean, when it comes to this scene, the other detail that I find interesting is that outfit that Sarah is wearing is a type of an outfit that she kind of had scouted out during this mock IPO that they actually experienced, and it was very specific. There's kind of a schoolgirl quality to that outfit that doesn't really kind of progress past the point of kind of seeing her in this moment, but it really informed kind of how she's set up in that moment when she's asking for that promotion, and kind of the optics of what you choose to wear in a work environment was something we discussed across the board with all of these characters, but that was very specific, that was the outfit that she was going to wear on that day that she was going to ask for that promotion.
And I'm going to add one tiny thing that brings it back to Google in a way, which is, I don't know if you guys know this, but at the United States of Women, they did a hackathon about creating apps to help women ask for more pay. And there was an article, I think it was, I'm trying to remember, in the Wall Street Journal a couple weeks ago, and there are these 7 new apps all about how do we hack the pay gap. And I just find that it really interesting that there are all these new technological tools for people to make change this way.
Yeah. It's, we're not touching a ton on the pay gap, but it's something that Laszlo Bach, who's one of our executives, just released a op-ed publicly that there is no pay gap across genders at Google, which I mean, in my 12 years at Google, that was my proudest moment, and I was almost in tears reading it, just to give me the peace of mind that we've looked at this, come back to work, don't think about it, just move that off your plate. And it's one of those things where I hope Google is leading the way to get some of those data points out there and make a real difference. So, excellent. So we have one more clip for you. Let's go ahead and cue it up. I think we can tagline this one as it's lonely at the top. It's heading out for a drink with a girlfriend to catch up. You know, I think it's tough. There's the underlying here where you kind of are seeing your character, who's very strong and powerful and ambitious and successful, letting her guard down for the first time and just looking for, you know, some human connection and having some time with somebody, and then she very quickly realizes that she's being taken advantage of. And I think this scene is also interesting because we see two women who are both driven and both ambitious and going after their same goals. And I'm curious from any of you, kind of the point of how we balance this line of being successful and driven and ambitious and firm and decisive, but also vulnerable enough and maybe showcasing qualities that we're not proud of or that we may not aspire to or we don't want to admit we're capable of, and how do we balance that? So tell me, maybe as a director or writer or any of the actresses, kind of.
If you guys have answers, that I am all ears.
Maybe it's more of a statement than a question. Yeah, any thoughts on, you know?
Yeah, it's funny, when I watch that scene, I watch it as the character, you know, I'm still very connected to that human, and as that human, I had to play the scene as I'm protecting my friend. Like, that's how I found my way mentally and heart-wise, is like, I wanna like take care of her, and if she's with a shitty guy, I wanna help her out of that. And that's not how the scene is experienced, and I fully understand that. But that's sort of it's interesting to me personally that it's like we have these rationalizations that we believe so deeply in that sometimes we do hurt someone thinking that we're trying to protect them. That's life. And that's, to me, one of the things from the beginning when Sarah and I were first talking about this movie, about like these gray lines and what is moral and what is right and how do you show that. And I think Amy did a spectacular job, aided by Meera, in really sort of presenting these things and then letting audiences experiencing them and have fodder to talk about. But I guess, to sum up, I don't have an answer. I really don't. I think we wanted to present it as a point of discussion.
I don't have an answer either. Maybe Anna will, or Amy or Meera. But I think again and again, as we were talking about this movie and interviewing Wall Streeters, what came up was that the women in business, whether it's Wall Street, entertainment, you name it, are either too nice or too tough. They rub people the wrong way, or they're the nice girl that can get walked all over and it doesn't get paid. And I think that's actually, sadly, still true to life. I find myself sometimes being too tough on people, and then I go the reverse and try and be too nice. And it's like, and I'm constantly, as a producer actress, thinking about it, and I shouldn't have to, but I am. And I think women, men, when they're in a tough situation, they're going to tell you like it is, and they're going to tell you like it is like this, and you're going to listen to them and blah, blah, blah. But if I talk to you like that as a woman, it's like, oh, well, maybe I should smile a little. And so I think it's something, I don't know how to solve it. It's sad.
Yeah, I think that was something that hit home so hard for me was the fact that there is that walking the tightrope of being too tough or too soft, and either one is going to get you, in trouble in some ways. And so it's almost like being on a tightrope. How do you? And I remember Barbara Burns saying that reading people and understanding people's psychology and understanding what the client needs, understanding what your boss needs, but it's something that women, I think, have to think about much more in terms of, like you say, how you present yourself, how you go in and ask for promotion, how you have a discussion with your client about pricing something when he thinks it should be higher, and you think in reality it should be lower, but you gotta be careful, especially when you've been told that you're ruffling feathers and rubbing people the wrong way. And when doubt starts to creep in, that starts to erode the person who, Naomi, who has been, I think, just like a shark sometimes moving forward in these waters, and really just really not afraid, frankly. I think she's just pushed a lot of stuff down, and when the doubt starts to creep in, that's when things start to crumble. And again, I think she really is, it's a moment when the bottom kind of drops out, when she thinks that she is, I don't think she doesn't have time to have many friends, but she just is a very solitary person because she's so focused. And she is a person who I think has closed a part of herself off and closed a part of herself down, so that, in this conversation, it starts to feel, I think, like things are just falling apart around her.
Yeah.
And she's really looking for somebody or something to hold on to.
Yeah.
So.
As I think about it and hear, just us talk about it more, it is strange that it has to be something that a woman is held liable for, because it feels like a superpower that you are capable both of getting things done and being someone's best friend. That kind of capacity for empathetic leadership feels particularly like a particularly female capability that should be, rewarded.
Yeah. And yeah. Yes.
That's the answer. And that's Meera Menon.
Well, I'm actually on this point. When I was doing the research and getting prepared for today, I couldn't believe it, and I tried to fact check it like 18 different times. But that Catherine Bigelow is the first and only woman to win an Academy Award as Best Director in 88 Academy Awards. Can you talk a little bit? We talked earlier about mentors and trying to find people to help you navigate your career or build yourself up, and those times when it feels like it's crumbling around you. How have you navigated your career in that way?
Well, it's kind of laterally, because I see more and more women kind of in younger generations taking, kind of creating situations for themselves to direct when in face of, the lack of permission or kind of the gatekeepers allowing them to occupy those positions. So I find there's a number of women that kind of have made their name in independent filmmaking as directors that I turn to, that are we're kind of trying to come up together, and we kind of try and form this kind of peer-to-peer mentorship with one another. In terms of mentors that I had kind of through the process of just learning to become a filmmaker, yeah, more often than not, they were men. They were male directors that I had as faculty in my film school program, or just people that I shadowed with, or yeah, more often than not, because there are so few women in that position, they would be men. But I do find there to be some kind of optimism when I look sideways. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I think, a big theme for me in the film and in sort of looking at women in the creative world as well is the idea of scarcity, right? And the idea that it requires someone to feel secure and powerful in order to be generous. So I think that is why so many mentors in Wall Street and in the arts as well have been men, because you have to not feel that your own position is in jeopardy in order to reach down and help someone else. And just in doing press for the film, I had a memory that I hadn't thought of in a long time. And when I first moved to New York about 20 years ago, and I was starting out as a playwright, and Tina Howe, who was a Pulitzer Prize-winning writer, came and spoke at a conference I was at for women playwrights. And she actually got up and she said kind of the counter of what you're saying, and it didn't sound very inspiring at all. She said, yeah, don't look at us up here to help you, because we barely have jobs ourselves. And she said, look to each other. And it's funny thinking back on it, because in a way she was right, and those are the people that have helped me the most. Like, you and with the three of us all started out around the same time. But there's also something very sad about that. Very sad that a woman who had won the Pulitzer Prize basically said, don't ask me for anything. My own stature here is so shaky. And just for me doing the film, looking at the difference between the business world and the arts world has also been interesting, because in the business world, even though someone at the top may not feel secure in their position, they at least have resources at their disposal. In the arts, I find there's such a scarcity of resources that people are even more likely to look out for themselves and not reach out to help someone else. So it's been very interesting.
I want to make sure we have some time if anybody in the audience has questions. We have mics set up on either side. in the meantime, I'll throw out another question while people are getting up and thinking of their questions. But I don't know if you guys had read, we've been talking a lot about New York Times articles up here. But there was one about bro
The really
talk.
great one about equity that was in the arts.
Exactly. There was one about bro talk on Wall Street a couple weeks ago. And it was, for those of you that hadn't read it, it basically was saying that, you know, in behind closed doors, or just when you're not in mixed company, that there's a lot of bro talk that happens on Wall Street, where there's, you know, they're objectifying women, and how does this impact women's careers. And I don't think it's specific to Wall Street, right? Again, that's a resonating theme throughout this movie. This is not just one particular industry. It's a story and a perspective we haven't seen before. But I'm curious, you know, for the men in this room and men in business or Hollywood, they will be responsible for helping to sponsor us to get us there, because they're in the positions of power. So what are your thoughts on ways that men can help to sponsor women, if it's not a direct mentorship or it's not women that they're looking to? Kind of any examples of men that have really helped you guys around your careers or helped with the film?
I mean, I will say that with my first film, the investors were 90% men, and I had no track record. And they didn't need I find that sometimes, and this is not good or bad, it's just different. Sometimes female investors have a little more of the herd mentality, so they're more interested if their friends have invested. They're more interested in how much their friends have invested, where I find personally that the male investors just decide to believe in you, and if they believe in you, they write a check for whatever they want to write a check for. But I think it's just important that we're 50% of the population, and that whether it's a man or a woman in a position of power, that we realize that big changes have to be made in terms of bringing women up, supporting women who want to have families and want to go away for a year or two. That doesn't mean they're not valuable. They still have 30 or 40 years left of working, but making it a mission, you know, much like we need to make diversity a mission, like making it a mandate at every company.
And holding people accountable. So that's another thing that Ruth brought over to us in terms of hiring and promotion, and just making sure that, you know, if there's not enough women on the dock or not enough women being talked about in talent reviews, that we are asking pointed questions and making sure that we're holding people accountable to those conversations. Go ahead, we have a question.
Hi guys, thank you again so much for coming. This is such a treat. I was curious, if you could tell from the clips, there are a lot of really powerful moments in the film, and I was wondering if you guys would like to talk about any moments that were really fun to film or to write or to direct that will kind of stick with you as you move forward to other projects, and if any of them really resonated for you personally, or just like a really fun part of the film to work on.
I feel like I loved every single scene. Everything was just so meaty and juicy, and there was so much to sink my teeth into. And the money speech I thought was incredibly written, and also, you know, we talked a lot about finding a balance in there, because Naomi, as much as she makes that statement, she's not making it, she's not the Gordon Gekko, she's not, you know, she's not talking about greed, but she is saying this is important and we deserve to have this and to own it, and to stand up as much as men do and not to be afraid of it. And I just am sort of jumping back to, in terms of, you know, what men can do to bring women up, or, you know, how it is that we can support each other. I guess I was really lucky. I had two mentors myself, who were Kim Stanley and Vivian Nathan, who were from the Actors Studio, and they really gave me the sense that I could do anything if I put my mind to it. It might be hard, it might be years to get there, but it was, you know, it was, if you love it, you just keep going and you keep doing it, and you work in a 99-seat theater in LA if that's what you need to do, and you just keep feeding it and keep honing it. And so that really did, their support and their belief kept me going through the lean times, or the times when I thought maybe this isn't going to work out. And I think that, again, that's something that is explored in this film, and I think it's very, very important for us to look at it and to keep shining light on it, because I want my daughters to feel like they can do that, that they feel like they have every opportunity that a man has, and they should feel that they can go in and not be afraid to ask for the promotion, to ask for what they want, and to speak their mind. That's that.
I mean, I'd say any scene I got to see James Purefoy and Anna just act off each other, because it was just like delightful chemistry, and like you guys are like a kind of classic old Hollywood, like Clark Gable, like Carol Lombard, like you guys just had that sharpness with each other. And James isn't too bad to look at.
He's not too bad to look at now.
For me, there's this magic. I'm actually a very, I sort of have the wrong personality type for a writer because I'm a very social person, and writing requires for you to be alone in your house for huge chunks of time. So I've always, starting out in the theater, my favorite moments are always when the thing that you've created alone, and you get in your head and you're thinking, I mean, I don't know if it's like coding, but you're thinking like, does anyone care about this thing I'm writing? And then it becomes a reality. So for me, when the first time I was able to come on set, and they were shooting some scenes in Anna's apartment, and there was this fish, and I just remembered sitting at my computer one day and going like, we had talked about it, but I just remember like, she should have a fish, and now the fish is swimming, and you think like, I'm spending my whole morning thinking about this imaginary fish, but then you go on set and there's a real fish, and it really feels quite powerful. So.
Remember you like taking pictures of the fish for like an hour on your phone.
Very excited about the fish.
Go ahead, we have another question.
Yes, hello. So you talked a lot about a mission behind this movie, not just entertainment. Do you think it being a movie versus a book or an article or some other means, is it going to reach more people, or is it going to have a different impact, you think, it being a movie specifically?
Well, that depends on people like you buying your movie tickets on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday of this week, preferably, and going to see
She's
it.
not kidding. We're not kidding.
I think personally, I think movies have a wonderful, and television has a wonderful way to create conversations about change, because I think a lot of people see them and they see them for fun. And our goal as a team in making this movie was to make something that is just in and of itself an entertaining Wall Street movie. We really just want you to go to the movies and enjoy the movie. But then, isn't it nice when you leave a piece of theater or a movie or a TV series and you have real issues to talk about afterwards? Our goal is that you just watch it and you don't really notice that it's starring 3 women, directed by a woman, produced by a woman, written by a woman. You just watch the movie and enjoy it. And then afterwards you're like, hey, women can do that. And it's a really great movie.
I think that's a really interesting undercurrent when watching the film, is that there's not a lot of discussion about being a woman, right? It's just something that I knew of going into watching the film, but there is so much there to unpack that is covered through the subtext or through the interactions that might not always be something that men would pick up on in regular terms, but because you're seeing it play out on the big screen. It was one of those movies I definitely will say it's uncomfortable to watch because it hit really close to home. And it was one of those moments that I would get so frustrated, and I could feel everything that Anna was going through. And it is a really powerful message to put out there, and I think to digest in this platform.
Yet another reason why it's important to see on the big screen, not the small screen. Go on, Amy.
I just also wanted to say, on that note of, yes, we've been asked here today to talk about some of the themes and the issues, but when I started out as a playwright, my brother, who works in finance actually, would constantly he would basically say to me, he thought I was too caught up in social issues, and he thought I was prioritizing too much in my projects, the themes and the subject matters that mattered to me. And he would constantly say, just tell a good story. People just want to forget whether it's environmental or just tell a good story. So my brother actually came on as an investor in this film, and when he came to see it at Sundance, he had never read the script, he just took a leap of faith, and when he came to see it, I was really nervous because I needed it to be a good story for him, and he loves the story, so that's a vote of confidence for you.
2 thumbs up.
Go ahead.
Hello. Amy, now for some reason I want to fish. I don't know why. So question for you, Alysia and Anna. So in the past, it kind of what struck me is that you both played really strong and, if not polemic, female characters on TV. Especially you, Alysia. Holy moly. Amazing. But I was just curious, like, if either of those characters that you played, I'm talking about Breaking Bad and Orange is the New Black, obviously, helped inform your performance or kind of made you think about, writing the line, between like, soft and hard and strong but not too strong. Just curious. If no, then no. But, yeah.
Well, I had a very strange and interesting journey with Skylar in terms of the sort of Skylar hate on the internet. And it was a very difficult thing to understand when it first started happening. I wasn't really into looking at anything online, and I was informed about it. And then as I wrote in an op-ed piece towards the end of the show, I opened Pandora's box and looked at some of it, because I wanted to understand, as an actor, you want to understand if what you're doing is not working or is rubbing people the wrong way for some reason. And then I started it really did parallel Naomi's journey in so many ways, because I started to doubt myself, and I started to think, okay, what should I improve, or what should I do differently? And then I really went through a process of shutting it down and not looking at it anymore. And I think there were several reasons that it happened, but I think we're still dealing with the expectations of what a woman should be, what her gender roles, what a wife should be, what we expect a woman to look like, to speak like, if she's too confident, if she's too, all those things. So I felt like I really understood, because I'd been through that. It really informed how I played Naomi, because I'd been through that. And I think that's why she's such a tough person on the outside, because she has to be.
And for me, I had a similar journey. You play a character like that that's incredibly recognizable, and I always say, like, my daughter would be on the subway, and my daughter learned the word badass really early because I'd be with her, and like multiple times a day, people come up to me and they're like, "You're a badass," and she's like, "What's a badass?" And similar to when we were talking earlier, I never saw her as a badass. Like, when you're in it, you're just trying to do the best you can. Like, Fig really thinks she's doing the best she can for these women. Like, she really does, in her twisted way. And let's be honest, what happened when she left? Not great stuff. Like, she was working the system, but she was running that place better than he did, So, just saying, just saying, the woman knew what she was doing. So, with this, I think, in reference to this piece of art, I just want to say I was so deeply inspired by Genji and all the writers and all the female directors and the diversity of that cast. And then also, I got to work in Shondaland after that. It was funny because I wrote, like, when we wrote our characters before we came to Amy, and when I was creating this character in my head, I hadn't played a lawyer since, like, 5 Law and Orders ago, which we did together. We didn't know.
That's right, yeah, we didn't know.
We were in the same episode, didn't know each other. So I was interested in playing sort of the opposite of Fig. And when we wrote her, and I knew that I wanted to be married to a woman and an African-American woman, because I wanted to create as many roles for women and women of color in this movie. And we didn't have an answer about when we first had the ideas of these characters, we didn't know how the movie would end. So we didn't know, would she catch the bad guy in the end? She was the one in the white hat. We didn't really have a sense of where we were going with it. That's Amy's brilliance. And I, back to sort of full circle, how Fig thinks she's doing it. Samantha still thinks she's going to catch the bad guys. She's going to go and do it a different way, but she really still wants to wear the white hat. So I don't know if that answers your question at all.
So we are running short on time, but I just want to make sure if you guys could summarize quickly one sentiment from this talk that you want to make sure that the audiences walk away from when they see the film on the big screen this weekend. What would it be? There it is. Okay.
Support women with your dollar.
Don't let money be a dirty word.
So the film opens up this Friday in New York City and LA. Please, please, please go see this film. It's a very important statement, and it's a great, great story. I'd love to thank all the Googlers for joining, the events team for kicking off a flawless event, and to our amazing panelists, Alysia, Sarah, Anna, Amy, and Meera. Thank you so much. Congratulations, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.